Hey guys, I just finished watching Killer Klowns from Outer Space, and I haven't seen that since I was a little kid, so it's kind of like watching it for the first time. In case you're wondering what this movie is about, it is about a thought-provoking existential retrospective on contemporary abstract social constructs steeped in symbolism, metaphors, and allegories. Just kidding. It's actually about killer clowns that have come from outer space. My favorite scene is when the short clown goes up to the biker and the biker smashes his bike, and then the short clown puts on these biker gloves, and the biker's like, "What are you gonna do, knock my block off?" And so the clown proceeds to actually knock his block off and punches him so hard that he decapitates him. And I really like how his body just crumples when he gets decapitated. Mind you, Killer Klowns did this 1 year before Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan did the same thing to a guy on the roof. Just, you know, my wealth of useless information. Second thing I noticed, Killer Klowns turned a adult human being into ventriloquist dummy years before it was done in dead silence. So it's another feather in the cap of Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Did anyone else notice how the Killer Klowns, I guess killer popcorn, sounded a lot like the tomatoes from Attack of the Killer Tomatoes? I just noticed that, the little noise it was making. Also, both movies have a title song that sings the title of the movie. That is the Killer Klowns from Outer Space song, and also the Attack of the Killer Tomato song. When I was a kid, I really didn't care for the design of the clowns, but now looking at it as an adult and seeing what goes into practical effects makeup, I can really respect the effort that was put into these clown designs, and I actually like them now as an adult. This was just a fun B horror movie, and please understand that when I classify movies as B movies, it's not a knock on those movies, because B movies are one of my favorite type of movies to watch. It's just a general classification of this type of film. I also class this movie as slumber party horror, in that you could easily show this to like a group of kids 9 to 12 years old, because there isn't hardly any cursing in it. It's not scary in the least. The violence in it is completely cartoonish, but you know, again, as a parent, that's up for you to decide, not for me, but I wouldn't have a problem showing this to my nieces or nephew. I definitely recommend this movie, and I gave it a score of 6 out of 10 for enjoyment's sake. By the way, according to IMDb, a Killer Klowns 3D movie is in development. Don't know whether that will ever happen, but it is listed as in development, so I guess that counts as a sequel or possibly a remake. Don't know. And now I'm going to continue my Klown-a-thon and check out Killjoy.
They want to play games? They're messing with the wrong guy.
What are you in for?
Killer Klowns from Outer Space. It's crazy.
Okay, I just watched Killjoy. I watched this back in the day on video at my aunt's house, and I remember me and my cousins were rolling watching this movie because it was so funny. This movie gets right to the point. Boy likes girl, girl's boyfriend mud stomps boy, boy goes home, summons an evil demon clown to deal with his bullies. These bullies are supposed to be thugged out gangster gang member type dudes, but they look and act more like the actors that B-Rad's dad hired in Malibu's Most Wanted to try to scare him. When we first see Killjoy, we don't get to see his face. He shows up in an ice cream truck, which I really liked. And then the second time we see him, he's popping and locking, which was hilarious because the first time I did not expect him to do that. But I did like how they pretty much didn't show his face for the first few scenes that you see him. He's in silhouette or you see him from behind, which was pretty cool. Also, after seeing him dance, I had a fan theory that he was the same person as Michael Trapson. But later on in the movie, you do see a character that is obviously Killjoy without the makeup on, so it's not Michael Trapson, but that would have been really hilarious if it was the same person. There was a couple sex scenes in this. I liked them because they were realistic, they were very tastefully done. And when I say realistic, I don't mean like in a porno type of way. I mean in a people were positioned in a realistic way, unlike Tommy Wiseau in The Room, where he was clearly humping the girl's belly button and it just looked all kinds of crazy. It's lit a lot like a music video, but that didn't bother me. I really liked the score. The score was right on point and the soundtrack was on point. The writing was really fun. I liked lines like, "Look what this clown did to me, I'm all fucked up." Also the Cali accents. I love how they kept on ending sentences with "cuz." You see what that clown did, cuz? You need to bust a cap in this clown's ass, cuz. I like that Cali accent. There's also a point where Killjoy tells one of the girls, "Come give Killjoy some sugar." And I died with that. And then during a fight scene, he hit this girl and he said, "Bitch." And yeah, he said it just like that with the finger snap and the head wiggle and everything. Maybe more dramatically than I could ever have done it, but that's what he did. Some of the special effects were garbage, but this is one of those movies that's so bad it's good, kind of like Dolomite or Leprechaun in the Hood, so it doesn't even matter. I like the clown's design. His hair, his makeup, his outfit was kind of iconic. I would put it on the same level as Pennywise, really. Although I am pretty sure that he's wearing rubber dishwashing gloves. Some of the camera angles were interesting. I wouldn't say that whether they were good or bad, just very different. One thing that didn't make sense was why the homeless dude made them all hold hands in a circle while he explained to them how Killjoy was summoned. Like, there was no reason for them to hold hands in order for him to tell them this story. And then he proceeds to disappear in a puff of smoke and no one reacts to this. Like, it's just the normalest thing in the world for a dude to just disappear in a cloud of smoke. Like, no one reacted or said, "Oh, wow, that dude just disappeared in a cloud of smoke." I will tell you what is cool. The girls in this movie did not run and trip and fall or act like helpless screaming victims. They actually fought back. They thought quickly on their feet, and they were funny as well. One of the best things about this movie is the comedy of Killjoy in this movie. Especially seeing where he convinces Jada that if she kisses him, he'll go back to his realm and leave her world. But when she kisses him, he has what I could only describe as a clowngasm. And it's the funniest thing you ever want to see. I can't describe it, and nor can I replicate it. Just take my word for that. I won't even spoil the ending. It had one of the best, funniest endings I've ever seen. It's the type of ending I could see my mother very disapprovingly calling vulgar and juvenile, and I love it. This is one of my favorite B movies, and I recommend it, and I give it an 8 out of 10 for enjoyment. At first I was saying to myself that I want to see the sequels, but then I second guessed myself because Angel Vargas plays Killjoy in this first movie, but Trent Haga plays Killjoy in all the sequels. But then I had to check myself because we all remember, or we all associate Kane Hodder as Jason Voorhees. And then I thought back, wait, he wasn't always Jason Voorhees, and I actually had to look this up, and I'm going to read this off my phone just to remind people. Jason was actually played by Warrington Gillette in part 2. He was played by Richard Brooker in part 3, 3D, and part 4, the final chapter. Then Tom Morga played him in part 5, A New Beginning. Then CJ Graham played him in part 6, Jason Lives. And so Kane Hodder didn't even play Jason until part 7, The New Blood, yet we still associate Kane Hodder as the quintessential Jason Voorhees. He still is the best Jason Voorhees. Even if he wasn't the first Jason Voorhees, he was the best Jason Voorhees. And story time. I actually got to meet Kane Hodder. Real nice dude. My sister won passes to go see Hatchet 2, and he sat next to us and he kept nudging me with his shoulder and saying, watch this, just before each kill scene. He was very proud of those kill scenes. But he was a really cool dude, very down to earth, nice guy. Anyway, I do want to add Killjoy to my collection because I really liked it, and I think it's one of my favorite B movies of all time. But as I always say, don't take my word for it. Just because I love something doesn't mean you won't hate it. And just because I hate something doesn't mean you won't love it. So watch for yourself and let me know in the comments if you have seen either of these movies, what you thought about them.
It's dinner time! No
Killjoy.
You can't fucking kill me. I'm already dead.
Dead wrong, bitch.
Coming soon.
and the Klown-a-thon continues. I just finished watching Clown for the second time. I actually saw it maybe a year, maybe two. Yeah, no, I think just last year I saw it at some point, and I wanted to rewatch it today before I reviewed it so it would still be fresh in my mind. When I first watched this, I'm going to say the same thing that I thought again today. What kind of kid in the 2010s wants a clown? They don't want clowns, they want tablets and 4G lightning speed internet. I know, I have nieces and nephews. None of them have ever requested a clown for their birthday. The premise of this is a guy finds a clown suit, and the clown suit is actually cursed, and whomever wears it turns into a child-eating demon. Respect to the prop person that created the book that went along with the clown lore, or cloyne, as they said in this movie, lore. The book looked really antiquated and the illustrations in it were really good. I wish they would have shown the illustrations for just a little bit longer on screen because they were very good. The mythology associated with the cloyne in this movie, as it was told, it's so convincing that I actually Googled to see if the writer had been inspired by some Norse or Celtic or Scandinavian type folklore, but I didn't find anything. If somebody out there knows more than me and they know or found out that this was inspired by something else, please let me know. But I just thought the mythology, the way it was written, was really believable. I'm not going to spoil the movie because it's better if you see it for yourself, but I will tell you a couple things about the movie. The effects were really good. Everything looked very realistic as far as the death scenes went. Word to the wise, there are children in this movie. They are not safe. They will get messed up, just so you know that. Ballsy. The score was done really well. My only criticism is when they use that large or that very loud bong noise to indicate a jump scare. I feel like that's so unnecessary, and I wish that the sound people, or probably more likely the producers who keep pressuring sound people to include these things, would understand that that does not scare people, it just startles people. And there's a difference between being scared and being startled. Other than that, the score was great. Second criticism, I didn't like how muted the colors were, especially for a movie about a clown. I know that this became very popular after Saw, because Saw did make use of this muted kind of grayish green color scale, but within the story it made sense. And also, if you notice, if you go back and watch Saw, it isn't throughout the whole movie. It's only in certain scenes that filter was used. And unfortunately, because of the success of that, you have so many other movies trying to copy that, but they use the filter throughout the movie, or they crank it up too high, and it just makes the movie look horrible. In this case, it wasn't so bad. It was just, you know, minorly noticeable. But for a movie about a clown, I would want the colors to be a little bit more vibrant. I miss vibrant colors in horror, so much so I really, like, while we're talking about that, why don't we also stop with all the sepia and let's put that green filter to rest as well. That's why I stopped watching Chiller 2 years ago, because every time I turned on Chiller channel, there was some super boring horror movie on with this ugly green filter and the day for night crap that they keep using. And if you don't know what day for night is, it's when a scene is shot in the daytime and then they apply a filter to make it look like it's shot at nighttime. The fact that I can pick up on it means that you either didn't do it right or it's not working. Side note, since we're going into Tangentville, it doesn't have to be nighttime for something to be scary. If you remember, most of Texas Chainsaw Massacre was filmed during the daytime. The kill scenes were during the daytime. Other movies like Candyman, Insidious, The Conjuring all had extremely scary scenes that happened during the daytime, so it's not necessary for all horror to occur at night. By the way, the last movie that I saw on Chiller was called The Dead Girl, and I wrote a review about it on my site, which is whatajustwatched.com. I don't remember what I wrote in the review, so I should go back and reread it myself. But I do remember not liking the filter and that everything seemed like it was very green, maybe bluish. But it just had this filter where all the color was just drained out of it. And I know they're trying to make you feel like, oh, this is a very dead and sickening environment. But don't just mute the colors. It's not the same thing as telling a story. The characters in this were pretty decent. I like the older gentleman that told about the folklore of the cloyne and had the book and had the experience with the cloyne suit before. The most irritating character though was the wife. Oh my god. She was so irritating. Let me talk about one particular scene, and I hope this isn't considered too much of a spoiler, but at one point in the movie, she's attacked by her dog because it has become affected by the cloyne demon. Someone saves her from being killed by the dog, and unfortunately has to kill the dog. And rather than her thanking the person for saving her life, she gets angry because that person killed her dog that was clearly possessed by a demon clown. What do you not get about this? She was generally unlikable, and she was one of those characters that could have prevented another situation from happening just by telling another character what was going on, but she never tells this other character what's going on, and then that other character ends up being in danger because of that. But then just telling people what is going on would be too much like right. Now let's get back to what's great about this movie. There is a scene where the clown goes to a, I'm going to call it a playscape, because I don't really, or at least I don't recall seeing the name of this place. It kind of was like a Chuck E. Cheese type, McDonald's Playland type place. And there's a scene in these tubes, you know, the tubes that the kids crawl through, and then there's a slide that goes into the ball pit. There's a scene in that was really cool. I like that. I should have mentioned while I was talking about the practical effects, I do like the design of the clown demon better the second time than the first time. The first time I was a little bit meh about his design, but watching it a second time, I don't know whether it grew on me or whether I'm just seeing it through different eyes this time, but I like the creature design better this time around. All in all, I give this movie a 5 out of 10 for enjoyability. It would have been better if the wife's character had been written in a more likable fashion, but since she was written to be one of the most irritating people on screen, I would take points away, so 5 out of 10. And I'm gonna go check out another clown movie. I'm not sure which one yet, but you'll probably see which one it is after I record.
Forever, Mom. A winter.
Klown-a-thon continues with another killer clown movie called Thru, which came out in 2007. This one is a horror comedy, and it actually did well on both fronts. This movie starts out with a group of people going to Helleberger. They speak with an urban vernacular. I am told that it is disrespectful to refer to people of European descent who speak with an urban vernacular, grew up in an urban environment, or deeply identify with hip-hop culture as Wiggers. I'm told that that is deeply disrespectful, and that's why I said that they speak with an urban vernacular. So anyways, this car full of Wiggers pulls up to the Helleberger, and after the employee actually calls them Wiggers and insults them, two of them go into the restaurant to confront them, and they get killed. The killer clown inside is a personification of that restaurant's mascot. It would be kind of like if you went to McDonald's and Ronald McDonald killed you. I like that the killing starts right away. Just about not even 4 minutes into the movie, we get at least 3 kills, and the gore is pretty good. The clown talks a lot of crap, and there's a lot of gore, and I feel like this is gonna be my kind of movie. Another group of people is playing with Ouija board, and I'm like, what could possibly go wrong? The main character, Mackenzie, is talking to her boyfriend about him going away to college, and I'm sitting here thinking, these are supposed to be teenagers. They look an easy 30 years old. I mean, you can't even pass. This is not even, we will suspend our disbelief. Anyway, he says, one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. I have to go to New York because there's nothing I can do in SoCal. If you don't know, SoCal stands for Southern California. Southern California is arguably very comparable to New York as far as what you can do. I mean, it's not like he's from East Hartford, Connecticut, like me, where I walked past a Cornfield high school every day. The buses run once an hour and stopped running at 6 p.m. We used to have 2 movie theaters. Now there's no movie theaters. It still has no Walmart, Target, or even Starbucks. Your career aspirations are limited to the educational system, Pratt & Whitney, if that's still open, insurance companies, or hospitals. I once had an internship in an insurance company in Connecticut, and one day Bob wore a pink tie to the office. And you know what the talk of the office was? Hey, did you see Bob's tie? Oh yeah, it was a bright tie. Hey Bob, that's quite a tie you have on. And all day, did you see Bob's tie? This is excitement there. That's a place where you can't do much. And I'm not crapping on my hometown, or my de facto hometown. I'm calling it that because I lived in 7 different towns growing up, but East Hartford was the one that I lived in for the most consecutive years. So that's my de facto hometown. And I'm not trying to completely knock it. There were some good things about it. Like, it's a place where an 11-year-old girl could ride her bicycle around all over town pretty much safely. I learned tennis, croquet, badminton, archery, and horseback riding. Western style, if you're interested. There were Pumpkin Fest, Apple Fest, 3 public libraries, and multiple video stores. We had Video America, Blockbuster, one that I can't remember the name of it that was on Silver Lane, and Video Magic, which might have actually been on the border of Manchester and not in East Hartford. And we had the best Halloweens for kids. We had haunted hay rides, cornfield mazes, lots of trick-or-treating, and I had the type of neighbors that gave full-size candy bars. That was the best Halloween for a kid in the 80s and the 90s. Orlando, hands down, has the best Halloween for adults. And I've been in New York and Miami during Halloween, and they don't hold a candle to Orlando during Halloween. Although I do have an inkling that New Orleans probably would give Orlando a run for its money. I haven't been there during Halloween, but I just have a feeling that it would. I guess that line hella triggered me. Hella is such a Cali word. I might use hella more during this. Hella in Cali is like wicked or mad in New England or the tri-state area. The dialogue was hella snappy. The news reports about one of the teens that I mentioned in the very first scene with the car going to the Helleberger getting killed, and as one of the other teens is watching this news story, he actually says, "Dumbass Wicker probably got his cap peeled back by some real gangbangers." Also, there's a line where a guy tells a girl to calm down, and he tells her to relax, and she says, "You try to relax with Ronald McStalker on your ass." I like stuff like that in dialogue. One of the girls had those bodega slippers on. I don't know if you remember the ones from the early 2000s that came in every single like pastel color or bright color, and they kind of look like a basket weave on top, and it had sequins and beads, but I don't know what they're really called. I call them bodega slippers, but she had those on, and it was like a flashback to 2002. There was a "Hey, it's that guy" moment with the janitor, who I cannot remember the actor's name, but he's the same guy that played the kid who was crawling through the walls, who had his tongue cut off in The People Under the Stairs. I think his name was Mal in that movie, but he played a janitor in this movie. And also, I think that was Morgan Spurlock, the dude that did Super Size Me, working in the Helleberger restaurant. Funny thing about the guy that I just mentioned from The People Under the Stairs, I used to think he was the same guy as the guy that played Evil in Fright Night. I don't even know why, because now when I look at them as an adult, I'm like, they don't look anything alike, but their characters kind of similar. Did I already say that this movie had creative kills? It did. You know how I was just now complaining, what was it called? Fraternity Massacre on Hell Island, about how all the kills were just everyone getting stabbed? This was the opposite of that. Every kill was creative and unique. This is one of the better modern slashers that I've seen to date. The golden era of slasher movies for me is usually 1975 to 1985. Anything after that is usually kind of lame. So it's hard to find a good modern slasher movie, and this was actually a good modern slasher movie. Speaking of golden era, the opposite of the golden era for slashers would be the worst era for slashers, which is the early 2000s, with that crap like I Know What You Did Last Summer. I'm sorry if you like that movie, but that was garbage. If you grew up watching that, that's super cute, but might I direct you to Sleepaway Camp, The Burning, real slasher movies so you can know what it's supposed to be like. This movie actually captures the beauty of those 1975 to 1985 slasher movies, but in a modern setting. The killer wanted revenge for a grave injustice done to him. Remember how I said that that was one of those things that was necessary? You're either gonna make them have a motivation for revenge, or you're gonna make them psycho for psycho's sake. He had a smart-ass persona similar to Freddy Krueger or Killjoy. He had creative kills, which they showed, no cutaways. The gore was entertaining, as was the teen's dialogue. Okay, let's talk a few technical aspects. I already mentioned that the practical effects look good. I had no issues with the soundtrack or the lighting. The acting was pretty good as well. Really, this should have been released in theaters. I wish that it had been released in theaters. It was good enough to be. I'm giving this a 7 8.5 out of 10 for enjoyment, and I hope they make a sequel. I'm gonna go watch Stitches, and I will let you know how that turned out in a minute.
I want to hurt your children.
I am the one person who might be able to stop him.
Order up a slice of horror. Drive through.
Fast food kills.
Get yours on DVD.
Stitches is an Irish slasher film. This is actually only the second Irish horror movie that I've ever watched. I think the first one was called Grabbers. It's a film about a killer clown out for revenge. He accidentally gets killed by some badass kids at a children's party, and when they're teenagers, he comes back for revenge. The film starts out with the children's party, of course, with these kids that are approximately 9 or 10 years old. I couldn't remember if they showed the child's age on the cake. I didn't notice it, but they look about 9 or 10 years old. 2 of the kids are really bad, and they do some stuff that ultimately gets Stitches killed. Then the film cuts to the teens being about 16 or 17 years old, and what I like about how they reintroduce the teens is when they show each teen, a pop-up appears with their picture as they looked as a child and their name, so that we know which character corresponds to which character, which helped me out since most of the guys, if not, I think, yeah, all but one of the guys had dark hair and dark eyes, and same thing with the girl. So other than, you know, a little bit of their body build being different, they looked kind of similar. Off the bat, even though 2 of them were bully type jerks, I liked all of the teens in this. I liked each one's personality, and they each had a very distinct personality. Our main protagonist, Tommy, is planning a birthday party, and he hands out invitations to some of his friends at school. One of his friends is at home, and his invitation blows out the window and lands on Stitch's grave, which prompts Stitches to come up out of his grave to exact his revenge. Yeah, that seems ridiculous, but I'm allowing it because at least it's something different and creative. The humor in this is really good. The principal had this awful comb over that it's the worst purposeful comb over that I've ever seen. And I know it's meant to be that way for comedic effect, but the kids have this social media site called MyFace. Get it? Like MySpace and Facebook? Well, it was just made as a setup for a joke. See, Tommy didn't invite Sarah or Paul to his birthday party. So at one point, Sarah and Paul confront him in the hallway. When they confront him in the hallway, Sarah says, "I saw your event page. You invited everyone to come on my face." See what they did there? At one point, there was a really good false scare. It was great because there was no loud bong cue accompaniment, and that's what made it work. Let's talk about the gore. Somebody had their dick and balls ripped off, and I was here for it. That was executed so well, I rewound it and watched it again. There is dismemberment. There is a great kill scene that's set to Cutting Crew's "I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight." There's a great kill scene involving an umbrella that reminds me of something similar that happened in Friday the 13th 3D, except it was executed even better in this movie. And what I'll call the big head scene. And if you've seen the movie, you know what I mean by the big head scene. Every kill was creative and well executed. The practical effects were top notch. Super impressive. Respect to the effects team on this one. Man, I wish the US wasn't so lame and actually released foreign movies in the movie theaters, because this movie would have been so fun to watch at a midnight showing at the movie theater. I'm giving this movie an 8 out of 10 for enjoyment, but don't take my word for it. Just because I love something doesn't mean you won't hate it, and just because I hate something doesn't mean you won't love it. So if you've seen this movie, let me know what you thought about it.
Where do you think you're going? Oh,
just for the record, not every party ends with a dead clown.
Alright, let's talk about slashers. The premise of this movie is about 6 people who participate in a Japanese game show in which they must fight for their survival. Also, they're going to be terrorized by 3 slashers. 1 is considered a clown. The 3 slashers are a demented clown named Charlie, a dead-looking preacher, and a doctor that reminds me of Dr. Satan from House of a Thousand Corpses named Dr. Ripper. Except this came out 2 years before House of a Thousand Corpses. It's funny that Rob Zombie's 31 has a similar premise. You ain't slick, Rob Zombie, I see you. You might think that the premise of this seems out there, but really, with shows like Survivor and Fear Factor, we're only a couple years away from The Running Man, so this actually isn't that far-fetched. This is yet another movie that looks like a 90s TV show. The set, the lighting, the 80s TV acting, the score. Of course, in this movie's case, it's supposed to look like a TV show. I can only hope that it makes up for its look with extra gore. It was actually 40 minutes until the first kill. On the bright side, it didn't feel like 40 minutes, and of the first kill, it was just alright. The second one was way better, more gory, more entertaining. Great job, practical effects crew. And unfortunately, I'm starting to see a trend in a lot of movies that have great gore, but have mediocre everything else. Well, I take that back. The set was not mediocre. They put a lot of work and effort into the set, and I appreciate that, so respect to the set decor, set design team. Halfway through this, my boredom started setting in. There was only 2 kills and 40 minutes left to go in this movie. I'm gonna need a lot more slashing happening in a movie called Slashers. This movie had too much talking and not enough slashing. There was a pretty cool decapitation, and to the artist who did the severed head, you really did an awesome job making that severed head look like the actress. Great craftsmanship. I still got a little bit bored, so I started scrolling Facebook, and my attention didn't come back until they had another decapitation. There's one character named Megan, and she was so annoying. She kept making the same expression when she talked. Everything was showing her bottom teeth and furrowing her brow. This was her permanent expression. Overall, I gave this a 4 out of 10 for enjoyment because I did end up being so bored that I started scrolling Facebook. I heard a rumor that this whole film was shot in 1 take. If that's so, that is a pretty amazing thing. I wasn't paying close enough attention to be able to confirm whether it was shot all in 1 take or not. If you like gore, it had some good bits, although I wish that there were more of them. More slashing, less yapping. The most redeemable things about this movie were the gore effects, the set design, and it all being filmed in 1 continuous take. If they cut out 30 minutes from this, had better actors, better dialogue, and at least 5 more kills, I probably would have scored this a 6 out of 10. I think they were overly reliant on the concept of it being filmed in 1 continuous shot and didn't pay attention to other elements of the film. Cool concept, great artistry by the set designers and practical effects crew. And I definitely have to give respect to the camera person who walked backwards for 1 hour and 40 minutes to film this whole continuous shot movie. Did you see Slashers? If so, what did you think of it? Let me know. I'm going to watch Rob Zombie's 31, and I'll be back to let you know how I felt about it. And now let's talk about Rob Zombie's 31. This has a simple premise. It is about a group of traveling carnies that get kidnapped and forced to fight for their lives while being stalked by a group of killer clowns. That sounds familiar. It's like Rob Zombie saw Slashers and thought, I could do that better. I'll just replace the Japanese game show with some 13th century era dressed aristocrats betting on the proceedings. He actually did improve upon the idea. The cinematography is great. This is really a beautifully shot film for the most part. There's one part that I took issue with, but I'll come back to that later. The set or location I could only describe as grody, and it worked for this film. The acting was really good in this, especially by the killer clowns, and there are 6 killer clowns. There is Sickhead, who is a Spanish Nazi dwarf. Yes, you heard that right. And I actually enjoy the ridiculousness of this concept. Psycho Head and Schizo Head are a pair of chainsaw-wielding brothers who, if I were to quote their dialogue, I would have had to put one of those "Are you 18?" or "Nah" things before this video started. They were comically vulgar, especially this pregnancy joke they told. Then there's Sex Head, who is like a demented Harley Quinn type character. Deathhead, who is a big 6'5", possibly 7-foot tall dude wearing a white tutu, thigh-high tights, and a garter belt. And he has a European accent, which I couldn't tell whether it was German, Austrian, or possibly Dutch. And finally, there's Doomhead, who is just straight up demented. Now let me tell you about Doomhead. If there was an Oscar Awards solely for horror movies, he should win Best Actor. I mean, he delivered these soliloquies that would rival any highbrow art house film. In a final shot of him smiling, he looks more like the Joker than Jared, oh, you don't want no beef, huh? You don't want no beef, huh? Leto in Suicide Squad. Let's talk about the gore. It looks like there was some good work done here by the practical effects team, but I wish that we could have seen more of it. Going back to what I said earlier about the cinematography being good except for one issue. The one issue is the camera work during the, we'll call them survival scenes. There were too many cutaways, and when they didn't cut away, they did a hell of a lot of shaky cam. And I mean the type of shaky cam that you see in those Bourne Identity movies. You know those movies just shake the camera to cover up the fact that they were too damn lazy to come up with decent stunt choreography. But the jig is up, Hollywood. We've seen Ip Man and Ong Bak and The Raid and Chocolate, and that shaky cam stuff has got to go. We're used to seeing some good stuff now. By the way, if you haven't seen Chocolate, it is a movie about a teenage girl who is autistic, and her savant ability is the ability to learn any martial arts style that she can see. And each of her fight scenes in the movie is after different martial arts stars. And two of my favorite scenes is one is a warehouse scene where she pretty much fights in a super Jackie Chan style, and there's a scene towards the end in a dojo where she actually fights a breakdancing kid with Tourette syndrome. I know that sounds crazy. An autistic girl fighting a guy with Tourette syndrome. It's glorious. Anyway, dead that shaky cam. It's just no. And now that I think about it, I wonder if the cutaway scenes were there to appease the ratings board. I could see him doing this if this was slated for a theatrical release. I think it was only in limited theatrical release, but mostly it was released video on demand. For that, I say go all out and just let it be unrated. Why even try to limit yourself down to an R rating? If you know you're only going to get shown in 10 theaters and it's going to go straight to VOD, go all the way out. Matter of fact, if your movie gets banned, that's just better press for you. But then the US movie industry is pretty jacked up when it comes to horror. I can see them giving Rob Zombie a hard time, just like how they gave Eli Roth a hard time with distribution for The Green Inferno. Meanwhile, you got straight bullshit ass stuff like The Bye Bye Man and The Forest going in wide release. This is my second time watching 31. When I first watched it, I didn't really care for it. I now realize that that might have been residual saltiness about what Rob Zombie did to Halloween. Now that I'm seeing it again, it really isn't that bad. It's not for everybody. I feel like it's for a very niche audience, but I do believe that this will become a cult classic. I'm giving this a 7 out of 10 for enjoyment. It would have been higher had they shown me the gore and didn't cut away from it, because it really did look like the special effects crew worked on it and looked like it would have been good, but then they didn't show it to us for some reason, which I'm still thinking maybe it's a ratings issue. I don't know. I really enjoyed the clown villains, especially the Chainsaw Brothers. What were they? Psycho Head and Schizo Head. They were some foul-mouthed clowns. I mean, everything they said was foul. But as I usually say, don't take my word for it. Watch for yourself. Just because I love something doesn't mean you won't hate it, and just because I hated something doesn't mean you won't love it. Have you seen 31? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments.
Everybody loves popcorn.
Hey Lashy Kids and Driving Mutants, I'm Lady Shasha, Mistress of the Snark, and I just watched Clown in Cornfield. I like how this movie starts off. It very much follows the pattern of your classic 80s slasher horror movie. The first two kills happen within the first few minutes of this movie, and I love that for us. It also takes place, well, partially in 1991 before it jumps to the current day, and I like that time jump as well. Our main family in this features a father and a daughter, and they are driving cross country to their new home as the mother has recently passed away, having succumbed to her battle with cancer. I like the opening scene that introduces us to these two characters because the dad is listening to Eric B. and Rakim, which is so Gen X. And then I was reminded how old I was when the daughter said, you know how in the 80s you looked at things from the 1940s? Right now, we are the same distance from the 80s as you were in the 80s from the 1940s. And I was just like, wow. So when we play our music from the 80s, does it sound like a big band music to you? Because that's when I think of the 40s, I think of big band music, and I just, wow, I feel so old. Shout out to Mike Bracken, Horror Geek. Anyways, they moved to Kettle Springs, which I guess is meant to be kind of Midwesternish because they say they're from the East Coast, and the people in the town are like, oh, well, that's far away. So I can only imagine it's somewhere in the Midwest. Also, the cornfields. Although we do have cornfields in Connecticut, because I was just telling my sister that there was a shortcut from my high school to home if you're walking home from school, and the shortcut was through a cornfield. And she was like, we would never, her generation, which is a little bit after mine because she's exennial, she was like, we would never have cut through a cornfield. And that just seems so ordinary to me to cut through the cornfield. The first person she meets in town is her neighbor. Well, at least I assumed he was a neighbor, or at least he lived close. His name is Rust, and he's giving like the stereotype of old country guy. They call him a redneck several times, but I mean, it's just giving a person from the country anyway. And he walks her to school and tells her about the town and about the titular clown, which was a mascot, I'm looking at my notes, for the Bay Pen syrup clown. I would have never remembered that if I didn't take a note of it. When she goes to school, they have this teacher that immediately gives you stick up the ass type of instructor, and at first you don't know why he's like this, but one little girl, well, we think it's one little girl, but it's a group of kids, troll the hell out of their teacher, and he does not have the best reaction to it, so they all end up in detention. And Quinn, that's the new girl that just moved there with her dad, she's in detention with them, and then they tell her more about the town's history. And one of the little boys in the class, his grandfather started the Bay Pen corn syrup company, and that there was a fire also that took the company out. Basically, they took the legend of the Bay Pen clown and turned it into a serial killer series for their YouTube channel. So they pull pranks all the time doing these serial killer stunts, and people kind of know them as the bad kids who pull serial killer pranks. Anyways, Quinn takes a liking to the young man whose was it grandfather? He said grandfather, but it felt like it should have been great grandfather. Started the whole Bay Pen corn syrup clown thing, and she's there for like 3 days. She's already making out with, or trying to make out with him, because she's very aggressive. Of course, her dad finds out, and he's like, well, you're not going to see that boy again. And she does that what I call the Hollywood thing of cursing your parent out and then running to your room and slamming the door, which would never happen in my house because my mother doesn't play that. Like, she would have caught me by my ponytail. I probably could have got away with that with my father because he's more of a, if you have parents that are good cop, bad cop, my father's definitely the good cop. My mother's the bad cop with that situation. But yeah, at least for me, I only see it in movies or TV shows where the teenager does this and then runs to the room and slams the door as if their parent is not going to bust the door open and continue that conversation. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's a cultural thing. But I digress. By the way, I'm giving you a recap, but it's not a scene by scene because you got to leave something for people to watch in case they happen to be watching a spoiler review, even though they haven't seen the movie. So they invite her to a party inside of a barn, and they pull a prank on her and record it. You see it if you've seen the trailer, you've seen the prank. But then later that night, of course, this is shown in the trailer too. She's looking at the footage that they uploaded to YouTube, and she sees the real clown in the background. And this alerts her to, hey, there's something else going on here, and she shows them as well. But they don't take it super seriously. There's also a side plot about a Founders Day and the parade that goes along with the Founders Day. I wasn't super interested in that part of the story, although it did add an element of something new to the story. I would say this movie had some really fun elements. There were some comedic moments that I really, really enjoyed. I was surprised. I was really surprised by the writing because I've been let down so much by recent slasher movies. If you've seen my shorter videos that I've posted on TikTok, you know how I felt about In a Boring Nature. You know how I felt. I don't think I did a Hard Eyes one because I was so disappointed. Not by the slashing and the gore, but by the comedy. I felt like the comedy didn't land for me in Hard Eyes, although I really did enjoy the gore and the kills. I thought those were pretty good. And it felt a little derivative of Scream. And Scream itself is derivative of other slasher movies, so there's that. But this had a sense of comedy that I would compare to maybe like an Eli Roth type horror movie, or going further back, John Landis. Yeah, when I think of horror movies that where the comedy hit, I'm thinking of John Landis. And it's Stuart Gordon that did Reanimator. Let's check. Brian Usna presents H.P. Lovecraft's Reanimator, starring Bruce Abbott, Barbara Crampton, Jeffrey Combs, and Stuart Gordon. I knew his name was somewhere in there. He did the screenplay. Okay, so I'm not completely off base. Directed by Stuart Gordon. Okay, see, I was tripping. See, when you second guess yourself, you think, oh, do I know what I know? Okay, I know what I know. Oh, there's a note up here. Let me see. Cat dead, details later. Anyway, that's a person who also knows how to interject comedy into the horror. So you get my point. I felt like this writer, director had a similar feel to how they interjected comedy into the horror. And I really enjoyed that. Definitely felt like this paid homage to several horror classics. One of them, people might not notice, but maybe it's just a weird thing with me. At one point, Quinn hurts her leg and she starts running, and the way that she was hop running was almost identical to Homegirl in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I didn't know whether that was just a coincidence or whether that was meant to be, because that's what it gave me. The unexpected turn is the reason why. Why is the killer clown killing? I'll tell you in a moment. Let me wrap this up for those of you who have not seen the film and they're watching the spoiler review for whatever reason. Go check out the film. It's a lot of fun. I think it's a great kickoff to what I'm calling, again, Summer of Slashers, because I'm going to get into more, because, we got Final Destination coming out, and I do consider that a slasher movie, even though the slasher is Death's Design. Still a slasher movie, in my opinion. Supernatural slasher. Either way, we're doing a Summer of Slashers because I just feel like it. This is a good time to watch a lot of slasher movies, and I haven't been doing my due diligence of letting you guys know about more classic slasher movies, which, by the way, this reminded me of 80 slasher movies, and I'm not talking about the big three because everyone tries to copy Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween. Not those. I'm talking about the more lesser known but still fun slasher movies. Stuff like Fatal Games, Graduation, Happy Birthday to Me, Intruder, The Mutilator. This was giving me a little bit the Mutilator vibe. I will get more into that when I spoil the ending. Like I said, if you haven't seen it, go see it. I feel like it's going to do really well when it does hit streaming. I think it's going to really pop off when it hits streaming, but I enjoyed it, and I feel like this movie's kind of going to maybe fly under the radar, and it's just a really fun movie. This is the last time I had fun watching a slash movie like this would be Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. That was a lot of fun. I rewatched that, and this has a lot of rewatchability to it. So there's that. Okay, let's get into the spoiler for the ending. Who is the killer clown? Why is he killing? How about it's not just one? And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, is it going to be like Scream? No, it's not like Scream, because it's not just two either. It's like a dozen of these killer clowns. And it's like all of the town's older people. Well, when I say older people, some of them are my age. What was I saying? Yes, the town adults. Why do they want to do this? I did notice something that could be a clue of why the town's adults were doing this, even though they did have a little bit of the mayor had a little bit of their villain speech of why I did it all type of speech, which, I kind of don't like. Anyways, the big clue that I noticed is the adults all speak with one accent, but the teenagers that are targeted all speak with a different accent. To me, that indicates that the teenagers that they're targeting have all moved to town. But then I thought that theory doesn't make sense, because one of the teens targeted is the son of the mayor, who's also one of the killer clowns. Why is he targeting his own son? And also, why did he frame his own son? Because there's a whole underlying story about how his sister passed away in the fire, and they blame him for the fire until they found out that it was an electrical issue, or at least it was written up as such, until he finds out that his father actually set the fire to try to claim the insurance money off the factory because they were about to close anyways. So why target your own son? Although the father never says it, it is implied that he is disowning his son because his son happens to be gay. Big reveal. I did actually like that side of the story because I didn't expect it, and I thought that his character was done in such a cool way where him being gay is really secondary to his character, except for when the reveal comes about his father and the other evil adults. Other than that, his character and also the love story in the background. There's also a love story in the background that was not annoying. Typically, I think love stories in horror movies can be annoying, but I think it's because of the way they're written. Because I noticed I didn't mind it in American Werewolf in London. Again, John Landis. So there is a way you could do it without it being aggravating or cringy, and I think they did that really well in this. Also, the setup for who the adults are, they gave these little tells when you I'm imagining when you rewatch this, you'll know immediately who these people are because each person had a little detail tell that they did. From the school teacher that I said had to stick up his ass. There's a waitress that she's very friendly to the adults, but she's not friendly to the teenagers. There's somebody else. The sheriff, he was a dick. And the shopkeeper at the general store. I almost want to call it a convenience store, but it gives more general store than convenience store. They all have these behaviors that let you know that something's going on beneath the surface. I also like what the character Cole said about the older generation. It was very, very poignant, and I completely agree. He said something to the effect of, you guys would rather burn everything down than to accept change. And I think that is so, so true, especially right now. And I'm seeing too much of not just my generation, but also people a little bit older than me blaming the younger generation for things. And it really gets under my skin because I'm like, do you have collective amnesia, especially for Gen X? I get it with boomers. They came through a different time where they had kind of the best setup. Like they had the best scholarships. They had colleges you go to school for $300 a semester. Like, I'm not even trying to hear what a boomer is talking about as far as what the youth are dealing with today, because you guys came through at a totally, totally different time period. But when I see someone in my generation, Gen X, act like they don't understand what the youth is going through, when literally if you were Gen X and you came out of high school in the 90s or college in the 90s, you came out during a recession, you know how difficult it is. You know how hard it was just to get a regular job. How many applications? I remember me and my cousin were comparing back when we were in our 20s, how we had put in 80 applications to try to get a job, just to get a call back. But somehow Gen X has amnesia about this.
Most Gen Xers are in school during the crash. So at first they think like, so what?
I vividly remember that day because all these classmates of mine in college were huddled around the TV. And I was like, what's going on? You know, like full on Keanu Reeves, like, what's up? Stock market's crashing. Well, that's fine. I'm a creative. Who cares? I'm going to be a writer. It turned out that had an impact on the job market. It turned out there weren't as many jobs.
Recession is already here.
General Motors and Ford are laying off almost 25,000 workers.
Coming out of college with a degree doesn't matter. No one can find work.
I applied for every single opening in my field, but there's nothing. Right?
Times are hard. You just gonna have to swallow your pride.
For Gen Xers, the new reality sees the birth of McJobs and the death of traditional careers.
White-collar workers are hit the hardest this time.
The stereotype of the slacker is born.
The whole idea of us being pegged as slackers, I think, came out of the fact that we couldn't get jobs.
People started looking at different ways that they could do things precisely because those traditional paths weren't there anymore.
That's kind of what Gen X was. A bunch of us kind of gone like, well, maybe there's like a back door into this bitch.
All sorts of independent film, independent music, alternative ways of working. That doesn't make you a slacker. It actually makes you the opposite.
And then also with the whole calling people lazy. You don't remember that they had articles with pictures of us on the cover, and it said slackers. They don't work hard. They don't dress right for work. They want to wear sneakers to work. They want mental health days. What is that? Do you remember they wrote those articles about us? You don't remember that? Because it's giving. You don't remember that when I see people my age get online and say, oh, these young people, they're so lazy. No. Anyways, you guys didn't click on this video to hear about generational conflict You came here to hear about a slasher movie. As a person who grew up watching slasher movies I keep bringing up the 80s, not because it's the only time there's slasher movies. I don't want people to get it twisted. There's great slasher movies from the 60s, the 70s, the 90s. I'm just saying this movie felt so 80s and how the storyline developed. It felt like watching something like Prom Night. Like it gave me those type of vibes. Completely original story, which I'm hearing is from a book, but like I said, I really, really enjoy this. I did find out that the director of this movie was born in 1972, and I like that this movie feels like a love letter from one Gen Xer to Gen Z, and I enjoy that. It's a voice that needs to be heard, because I feel like the dissenting voices that are speaking down on a younger generation are drowning out those of us that are trying to support, encourage, and watch you guys, do your damn thing. And I like that message of this movie. I'd be remiss and I wouldn't be myself if I didn't talk to you about the kills. Like I said in my shorter review on TikTok, the first kill I thought was just okay, but then I thought, oh, well, it's because you can see it from the distance and because they want to build up to something. So what I definitely respect is how the kills got progressively gorier, and more gory, and I enjoyed that. It looked like they used practical effects for what they did for most of it. I can't say I have any complaints about the kills. I really thought that they nailed it. Hey, give me a good decapitation and I'm happy. They gave me a good decapitation. They gave, well, the second one I wouldn't call, I was going to say multiple decapitations, but the second one was more of a complete and total destruction of someone's head, more so than even a decapitation. I really like that.
It's disgusting. Ugh. I love it.
The blood looked good, right color, right consistency. Maybe it could be a little on the watery side, but there was so much of it. I mean, I can't complain. I enjoy that. Is there anything else I could say about this movie? The ending seemed like maybe they were trying to go for a little bit of sequel bait, but I can't see how the story can continue. Since it's from a book that I have not read, maybe there's some things that I don't know about that. I think this review has been long enough. I've pictured a guy with the wrap it up B box.
Yo, the sign is real simple, B. It says wrap it up. Wrap that shit up, B.
I had a good time, but like I always say, don't take my word for it. Watch it for yourself. Just because I love something doesn't mean you won't hate it. And just because I hate something doesn't mean you won't love it. Here comes the thunder. Let's wait till the thunder stops. Oh my God, longest thunder ever. Until next time, don't take any wooden nickels.